Alrighty, ladies and gents, episode 12 of 2PT's 1Podcast with Mike and Miles, coming at you on a cloudy Saturday afternoon.
Cloudy? What are you on about? It's bloody pure sunlight where I'm from.
I
I don't see a cloud in the sky.
Staffordshire, innit? So today's big topic is going to be going over recovery. So all the aspects of recovery, types, why it should be utilised by most people. Hopefully the audio is getting better between the two of us. I now have a proper microphone. Miles has one on the way.
I do.
So we are
Mine looks less than the Dyson fan.
I can just do ASMR. But you are enjoying the podcast and we are working to improve them as we go. So we are going to start getting more relative content for people. So I think the biggest start is what would you say is the biggest thing for recovery in terms of importance?
That's a straight off the bat, proper broad question. That I think
if you had to rank it,
I think recovery can be somewhat par or more important, because the reason why it is, if you think about, let's say muscle building, for example, it's going to be more versatile to use. The building of the muscle doesn't actually happen in the workout. You're actually breaking it down. You're actually causing a lot of stress to the body. Yeah. The recovery side is what that builds it, which obviously adds with the nutrition, your sleep and stuff like that. So, yeah, important holds rest and recovery holds a massive importance. And if you think about your daily day, your 24 hours, you're only going to be working out also about an hour or 2 hours if you're doing most things like working like a normal workout or like a football match or something like that. And you've got to rest in 24 hours to potentially have an effect on stuff like how you improve, how you increase. So recovery is a massive thing to think about.
Yeah. So obviously with working out, you're going to be raising cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. So obviously putting yourself under the stress is going to make you grow, but being under stress for that amount of time is not going to be sustainable, and it's probably going to be detrimental to actually trying to build muscle and get better in performance. So I think it's important to realise that training every single day isn't necessary to get the best results. It's finding the balance between working hard and recovering hard. And I mean, the saying of recovering hard is quite a weird one, but it needs to be utilised in terms of nutrition, in terms of sleep, in terms of actually working out and how you move out of the other 23 hours. And like Miles just said then with the other hour, the other 23 hours in terms of nutrition and recovery are just as important as what you do within that hour. And it's key, really.
Yeah, I've mentioned a few times in the podcast, we see, as human beings, we tend to follow this kind of law of diminishing returns. The more we do something, the kind of less results impact on us and stuff like that. And there is, if you look at like studies on this and stuff like that, we follow this kind of like linear path where we get a load of benefits, and then we kind of get this reaching point, this kind of pinnacle point, and then from there it starts going down like a bell curve. And where that might look very different, it'll look different from me and Mike, it'll look different from me and you, and it'll look different from everyone else. Everyone's got that kind of optimal range before you can start calling it overtraining. Because ideally, there's two types of people, isn't there? There's two people who probably rest too much, and there's some people who rest too little. People who think, rest is for the weak and stuff like that. I mean, like, there's never going to be a balance. Balance does not exist when it comes to recovery. But as long as you're doing things like you're tracking, you're training, you're tracking recovery, your sleep, your nutrition and stuff, and you're staying consistent with it, you'll find that kind of somewhat optimal level for yourself. And you'll know. I mean, what fatigueness looks for you, Mike. I'm sure you're pretty quite aware with all this.
I mean, muscular fatigue is probably the biggest one for me. Obviously, from me, Miles play football. Well, used to play football a lot before the lockdown. So obviously you've got the cardiovascular fatigue, which is pretty evident to most people. Like, you will know when you get fatigued, cardiovascular system wise. Muscular, it's obviously a drop off in performance and power. So I think everyone will have a different level of fatigue and understanding where their fatigue sets in. So I think it's important to realize, like, okay, performance is going to drop from a certain point, but obviously all the cues need to be identified for you to justify and optimize your training.
Yeah.
So if you start your session working to ultimate fatigue, the rest of your session is going to be affected. So understanding that you need to train well enough and recover well enough, and because you got this question the other day, didn't you, on training with DOMs?
Yes, I did. So one of my clients asked me, should I be really training with DOMs? For people who don't know, DOMs is short for delayed onset muscle soreness. It's a byproduct from working out, created from lactic acid, but it's also a mechanism that the body uses to increase fatigueness. But yeah, example, like, I'm going against that. I'm already saying, like, yeah, you're feeling, maybe experiencing a little bit of pain and stuff like that, but you should go on and train. It will depend on people to people. You will hear that from a lot of me from this podcast as well. But it's going to be, you're going to kind of, when you're going through fatigueness, you're going to have kind of two levels of kind of fatigueness. One's obviously majorly physical, so pain levels, movement levels, you're going to feel tight, you're going to feel sore and stuff like that. And then there's going to be mental fatigueness, which I think for myself, I probably hit more mental, and I think most people actually, most will hit more mental fatigueness before they'll reach physical fatigueness. So for me, that'll be something like, I can't be bothered doing a run in the morning. It might be a case of I'm not enjoying my training sessions, or it might be the case of my moods are changing. I know when I get pretty overtired or I'm starting to get fatigued, my moods alter, and it's just kind of picking up on them kind of cues in that matter, that you kind of need to drop the ego and go, yeah, I probably do need to take a rest day or so.
Yeah.
And I can't say to you right now that you might need 1 day, you might need 2 days. It depends on how hard you've trained and the duration of how long you train and stuff like that. I mean, there's so many variables of how you can rest in that matter, that it all depends on you. It's you've got to strategize. You've got to play around with it in that kind of way before you can go. Because obviously, for example, people could just easily go, right, I can just have a deload weekend, reduce my intensity for 50% for a whole weekend. It could be fine. And then there's some people who might need 2 or 3 weeks. It all depends on your physical activity, obviously yourself, as in obviously how much obviously muscle mass you have and stuff like that, or your biological effect, or it could also as well be with genetics as well. It's such a unique thing in recovery. So trying to tie it down to you could do this, it's quite hard to do. The strategies, but it is a very hard thing to distinguish how much you kind of need. You'll kind of find patterns if you kind of start tracking it down.
Yeah, I think it's, for the majority of the time, it's going to be auto-regulation. So if someone comes to you and that if you're feeling tired, you're going to judge it off how you feel. You're not going to be, okay, in 4 weeks, I think I'm going to feel like this, so I'm going to have a deload week then. You play it by how you feel, and you judge it by how you're performing. So obviously, if numbers drops, if time is dropping on a run, fatigue will be setting in over time. So this could be where you drop into a deload, like Miles just said. Or, I mean, I don't drop 50%. I mean, due to my training, I just drop training for probably a rotation. So probably 6 to 7. Central nervous system, relax a bit, get back to normal, and then go again. So obviously the recovery itself, as Miles has already said, is going to be mental. So you've got mental, physical, nervous system, like everything is going to be able to recover.
Exactly.
Like, it's not just having a lazy day in bed either. Like,
No.
I think it's important to realise that you don't just turn into a potato to have a rest day or a recovery day. It's important to realise that recovery will also include other aspects of training. So you can look into SMR. Yeah, SMR. I was thinking ASMR because of the microphone then. So self-myofascial release. Obviously, that's going to be an active form of recovery. But then there's also mobility work, flexibility work, even just getting your steps in. So if you were aiming for 10,000 steps a day and you had a rest day, you would not just drop steps. You would identify that that's still on the plan, that's still important to include. You would just judge it and also regulate it accordingly to your goals.
Yeah. So example would be a case of what Mike's just explained, of being a little bit more strategic. Let's say, for example, if you're somewhat kind of an athlete and you're doing hard train sessions, medium train sessions, low train sessions, or your rest days, like you're going to manipulate your carbohydrates to depend on how much activity you have, depending also on your protein. For example, on your low impact or your rest days, you might have a higher intake of protein and a lower intake of carbohydrates. But then on your higher days, you might reduce that protein and increase in carbohydrates. I mean, it's a full job when you kind of, obviously you got to include stuff like recovery into that session. And I'm trying so much not to sound like a broken record at the moment, say stuff like that, but it's something. It's a big subject that I think a lot of people do miss out, and I think more people will overtrain than they will undertrain.
Yeah. It's just people just feel that battering the body every single day is going to get them the results that they want, when realistically it's the variables of, do you control your diet when you're on a rest day? Do you rest to a sufficient amount? When you day. So obviously we can discuss the variables of how to rest and what needs to be included in terms of rest. And Miles has just said nutrition. You've got sleep.
Yeah, sleep is the major one.
Yeah. So obviously if you jump in between shifts, obviously your sleep will vary, like me at the minute. But it needs to be controlled and in a way where it's going to aid in terms of muscle development, because that's going to be a major factor. You wouldn't. I nearly made a car analogy again then, but I'm not going to. But it's just important to be able to sit back and be like, okay, this and this are nailed, but this bit is where I'm actually struggling, and this is where I'm actually not getting the results I want because I'm not controlling the variables.
Right.
Every podcast comes out with controlling the variables, but it's important to realise that every factor needs to be accounted for, and if you constantly put the stress on the body, you're going to make it worse. And I've pretty much just forgot what I was going to say. Oh.
I generally understand. So obviously, if you look at, you look at things like your training splits and you're trying to bash a new PB every day, that's not going to happen. Well, obviously, first of all, if you try to hit that, you're going to hit a very high RPE, which is therefore going to cause a lot of current central nervous system damage, which therefore is going to stay in fatigue. You try to do that on a multiple day, and you will not get that same wage you did on the first day. So we've mentioned before on this podcast, like when you're obviously thinking about making your training split, there's kind of three pillars you can have a look at. There's obviously volume, intensity, and frequency. If you try to maximize all three of them, you're going to kind of maximize your level of fatigueness and that kind of matter. And that's why we obviously would recommend massively to focus on either two in one phase, and then maybe the next phase you can work on another. But for me, if I were to set an example, depending on, let's say, some of my clients' activities, we generally have a 6-week period where we work on a training phase and then we'll do like a review.
Yeah.
Now, most case or not, I've increase the intensity over them 6 weeks. And if, for example, if they're doing a weight loss as well as obviously increasing intensity, that's some physical stress right there. That's also a mental stress right there as well. So in that 6 weeks, they might be like, I can't do this anymore. Things like cravings are getting in the way, injuries might happen, or they're just starting to not show that same enthusiastic as they did at the start. So what I tend to usually do is I just tend to let them just have a little bit of loose. I let them have some of the things they might not be allowed before. I allow them to take a little bit of an easy session, so I might not finish them off without finishers. I might, like I said before, might decrease the intensity and the volume. And generally, by the end of that week, they're kind of already at me and going, I'm ready to get myself back on it. What's the next goal? And that's what I mean. Like, I've had a few clients when obviously it's just been a week. I've had a few clients where it's been a couple of weeks. I've had a few clients where it's been nearly a month. And probably that client where I've mentioned where it's nearly been a month, that's when you could say he's under training a little bit as well, because obviously a few things happened and stuff like that, which altered term of events. But the matter of the case of what I'm trying to say is sometimes that being able to reassess yourself and just saying, look, I need to back off the pedal a few times, because if you go full throttle and everything, you're just going to crash and burn. That level of adherence you've got to have for whether that's high stress on physical training or high stress on nutrition, sleep and stuff like that. If you try to monitor every single thing, eventually that's going to go down and you're not going to get anything done in that kind of thing. So it's good to kind of focus on things time and time again, instead of trying to focus on everything as a whole. A good analogy, actually, it just came to mind right now, is think about spinning plates. You try to spin one plate, whoa. You try to spin 2 plates, whoa. You try to spin 3 plates, whoa. You notice that one of the plates is starting to slow down a little bit. You go and spin that one up, and then you set the third one. If you try to add a load of other plates, next thing you notice, you've got 10 plates. You're not going to be able to monitor all 10 plates, and sooner or later one of them plates is going to fall off the stick and crash. That's kind of the same kind of way I'm trying to describe a little bit of your training, as well as the other things like your nutrition, sleep, lifestyle for that matter, and stuff like that. Most people don't realize that a matter of lifestyle stress can also have a massive effect on your ability to recovery. I was reading up on an article the other day that mental fatigueness and your mental stress massively affects your level to recover. So stuff like meditation is now starting to become a more popular thing, because people are starting to realize the benefits of it has on recovery itself.
You heard of David Goggins?
Of course, yeah. I'm reading his Can't Hurt Me audio book at the moment.
Obviously, the 40% ruling. It's like when you feel like you're done, you're only actually about 40% there.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Like that saying there has just contradicted quite a lot of things I've already just said about orientating. If you're feeling this and this and this and this, you should take a deload. But sometimes at that time, you've got to push yourself in order to improve. So you will find obviously this is a very much a trial and error thing, and you might not get this optimally right all the time, but this is where you got to know yourself pretty enough well before you can say, right, I need to alter some things and stuff like that.
Yeah, obviously this isn't just a podcast to be like, oh, if you're feeling a bit tired, like just have a couple of days off or drop your intensity. Like, this is the end point. I think a deload should be the last thing you think about, because like we've said, everything else needs to be controlled. So if you're not sleeping, you're going to feel worse during a session. If your nutrition's shit, you're going to feel worse during a session. You can't just use tiredness as an excuse to take a break. This is literally, deload should be the last resort. And everything else needs to be considered first and assessed. Especially if recovery, like, you can have rest days. No one here will say you must train 7 days a week. I personally do 2 days on, 1 day off due to intensity and generally the frequency. So I will be hitting a lot of body parts during sessions. So it is really a point where if you are feeling that bad, a deload should happen. Personally, I deload and I aim to deload around times where I know I'm not going to be able to train or there's going to be a reduction in training. So normally either a holiday myself or a public holiday. So if I get to like the winter, I'm going to ramp my intensity up and then get to Christmas, because obviously training around Christmas because of Boxing Day, Christmas Day, New Year's is going to be a nightmare. So
fair enough, I'm pigs in blankets.
yeah. So I generally just ramp up my training as much as I can to get to that point, and then I'm like, okay, no, I know I can have a couple of days off from this. And it's realizing what you have access to and when you have access to it, which can also help in terms of recovery. So obviously certain gyms will only open at certain times. If you can ramp up your training during the week when you know you can train, and you can take a bit of a reduction in training on a weekend, you can do it. You can fit it in. Yeah. You've got to fit it around the life that you can live. And no one's going to be able to run the intensity of doing, like Miles said, PBs every single week. You're going to have drop-off weeks. You're going to have weeks where you work on your form. You're going to have different weeks where you work on different aspects of your training, or else you're going to get bored. You're going to get tired because you are bored. And you're going to get lethargic about it. So recovery itself needs to be based around a multitude of training as well.
It's a consideration you need to think about when you're. And we've mentioned quite a lot already about the training aspects of relaxing and resting and stuff like that. For example, Mike obviously takes that 2-1 approach. For me, I train 6 times in a row and I do 1 day rest. Sunday's usually my rest day. But then again, my frequency is quite high, my intensity is quite high, but my volume, so I might only do 3 or 4 or maybe 5 exercises in my program. So I'm quick and go because I've got a lot of things in my life and stuff like that, but I like to be active, or I like to feel like I've done something every single day. Where Sunday for me, generally when it's my rest day, I quite like to do nothing. Generally, if it was in season, I would have had a game on a Saturday, so my legs are just kind of goosed. So for me, Sunday, just recovery days, just a sit down, whether that's reading a book, watching Netflix, playing FIFA or something like that. It's my chill time.
Yeah.
But it can also it's also can apply to stuff like your nutrition as well. So for example, let's say you're trying to lose weight. Let's say you're cutting your calories and stuff like that. Obviously, as you do that, things happen. Obviously, your NEAT goes down due to the fact that you lower down your calories and expenditure. Things like your sleep might be affected and stuff like that. Your level of adherence, like I mentioned before, might have lowered. So stuff like cravings might have happened before. And you're just generally getting bored of dieting. So you might have a refeed day. You might have a week off, a diet break. And they're the things that are my things on track. Yeah, it might take a little bit longer to get from goal A to goal B, but the amount of effects that it's going to do for your body and yourself is going to be beneficial. And most people generally who do that kind of a level approach end up getting to that goal in the end, instead of someone who's literally all out, gun blazing. A good example is literally the run I've just done this morning. So I've changed the approach that I have. When I first started running, I would just sprint, and then slowly my performance would drop to the end. Now, obviously, I've started a more gentle approach, and I've gradually increased my activity as well. And for the longer run, I managed to gain a faster time. So not the same as what I was mostly explaining, but it kind of sets a kind of the way what I was talking about before, saying in the fact that you don't need to go all gun blazing and stuff like that. You can periodize things into ways to maintain or keep that level of interest up and set the level of fatigue as low for a longer duration instead of just going straight up in the scale of it.
Just to flip back onto what Miles was saying about nutrition, obviously, if you're going into a gaining phase, if you're trying to put on weight, you could actually utilize your calories a bit different as well. So obviously, carbs are going to be used for your training. But obviously, your satiety, is going to be a lot lower when you're not moving. So if you're on a rester, you're not going to be training. This is when you can utilize fats. So you don't need as much volume of food and actually still hit the calories. So obviously you're going to be fueling the body for the same amount of calories. You can increase your fats because you're not going to be using the carbs for your training. So you're not going to feel as crap. Because I think a lot of people, they try and carb load or try and bulk on carbs. Yeah. You're going to get, 4 calories per gram of carbs and 9 per fat. Yeah, you're in a bulking phase anyway. So you can reduce food volume and make it utilize the calories better for the future and make yourself just feel a little bit better about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that generally makes sense. I mean, the bulking is, in most cases or not, if you're bulking, recovery is going to come a lot lower cost because you're in a surplus, you're in a gaining phase. But obviously, when you're in a surplus, and if you're in a deficit, fatigueness is going to come a little bit more at a higher rate simply because you're restricting yourself from fuel for the body.
Glycogen depletion.
Exactly, glycogen depletion. And that's why refeed days are really important. So for people who don't know what refeed days are, refeed days is a day in a week you can kind of set where you will dramatically increase your carbohydrate intake loads. Most cases or not, people will tend to do, I think, 5 or 7 times their body weight in kilograms. So, for example, let's say myself, who is 75 kg, that might look somewhere from 300 to 500 grams of carbohydrates. And the idea of it is to decrease ghrelin levels, which is obviously the hunger hormone, and increase leptin levels, which is the saturated hormone, but also as well as increase a lot of the energy and stuff like that. So it's a very, very pronounced fuel tool. You'll find that most people will tend to use it quite a lot. I know I use it quite a lot, especially Ed. I'm cutting a little bit at the moment, and I'm probably in 2 months. You cut as well.
Yeah,
the quarantine beach body.
It's just like I mean, I'm not working today, so my general activity level is going to be lower. But I have been doing fasting, so generally between 12 and 7 or 12 and 8. Like I haven't eaten actually yet today, so I'm actually doing not too bad. So if I can go between now and 6, have a 6-hour window. Obviously, your food allowances within that time can be a lot nicer, but topic for a different day.
Yeah, that's a topic for a day. As normal on this podcast, we go off topic. We go completely somewhere, and it's usually myself who brings it back into tension. But yeah, so what would you say, Mike, is the first thing you would optimize when it comes to looking at recovery? I already know my answer.
I think is a pretty big one. Sleep will be second.
Oh, sorry, say that first one again. It just glitched out for a second. So, sleep is your second one.
Nutrition was my first.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like nutrition, and especially like the recovery isn't. So I think we've spoke a lot about rest days, but recovery is literally as soon as you finish your session.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's going to be important to refuel the body and aid the body in terms of getting it into a state of muscle protein synthesis and help with muscle development. So getting the nutrition right first and understanding how that's going to affect your body in terms of what you eat post-workout and this anabolic window.
Which is actually quite true. It's a bit, but saying the anabolic window is actually true. It's not a bee's knees. It's not like if you don't get it in the next 45 minutes after your workout, you've lost all your gains. No. In more cases, it's pretty much 24 hours after you've worked out. But there's optimal kind of recovery strategies that comes from 45 minutes after your workout, as well as obviously still value 3 hours after your workout as well.
Yeah, because I think everyone goes for protein post-workout, but carbohydrates post-workout is just as important.
Yeah. Get your high glycemic carbohydrates in there to go straight into that bloodstream. I would actually, so I would switch them about. So sleep for me is a massive point. Obviously, there's a study out there at the moment that they took, I think it was like 16 athletes or something like that, where they gave some of them 8 hours of sleep, some of them 7 hours of sleep, and 6 hours of sleep, and dropped it so much. There might be more athletes. And they find that they want to have 8 hours of sleep, generally risk of less of injury, obviously less of weight gain, and their moods were generally better. And for me, and I've noticed this with a majority of my clients and stuff like that, is when nutrition isn't right, when training isn't right, sleep is generally the culprit. If you're not sleeping very well, it's like a kind of vicious circle. You kind of like, you're not sleeping well, you're not going to be in a great mood. Therefore, it's going to affect your lifestyle. Then your lifestyle is not going to be great. Then it's going to affect your sleep. And therefore, if you're sleeping not great, then your nutrition and all that. But very, very close is Mike's first, which is nutrition, which is very right. So treating your nutrition, making sure like your protein levels are at a good optimal level, your carbohydrates are there, and your fats are there as well. Yes, all three macronutrients, as I've said multiple times, have their roles. So suck it, ketogenics. Drama. I'm going to get some backlash from that.
Ketogenics.
Keto. But yeah, it's them two there are going to be a massive thing as well. And then obviously my third would be my training, because obviously if I'm not tracking them, I'm not periodizing my training sessions, or I'm monitoring what I'm doing and how I'm doing them, I could be going in a vicious circle. I know for me, if I go for a high volume and stuff like that, my body just can't handle it. I sound like a broken man, but I prefer this kind of quick and easy, get it done, and then I can focus on other things as well. It's worked very much for me. It might be different for Mike, it might be different for you, and it might be different for the person right next to you and stuff like that.
Yeah, the volume for me is probably the least important, because obviously it's hard to say, but you can get a load of bullshit sets in, pardon the language, but you could probably do just as much hitting one set with an incredible level of intensity, which, I mean, that's why I do an upper lower, because I can work into obviously an agonist antagonist style of training and then optimize my fatigue levels per muscle group. So obviously if I'm fatigued on my chest, I'm not going to continue pushing work through my chest, because that's essentially just going to be junk volume, because you're only going to be able to stimulate the muscles so much before it's just like, I'm done, I can't take any more, I'm out, and there's volume gone. So you might as well get it to a point where you can hit the intensity and get that optimal point of stimulation within the muscle, and then like, okay, I can do this somewhere else now. Obviously CNS, central nervous system, is going to be fatigued already, so that is going to knock on to the next part of the session. But it's important to realize that battering chest and having like chest days and arm days is only going to get you so far, especially when you can recover. Like, you can recover within 2 to 3 days on a chest day, and then you've got another 3 days until you hit chest again. Like
go on. So
go on.
This is no. I'm going to stop you there before you go on your another rant.
Yeah, you know what I mean, though, don't you?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But for people who do not know his name, there's a guy called Eric Helms, who is this guy's just smart as it comes and stuff like that. If you don't know him, you need to start knowing him and stuff like that.
3D
and he's done already a paper on what muscle wastage after non-training and stuff like that. And they found that people who do the bare minimum and stuff like that, or people who do like deload weeks for a couple of weeks, found that no muscle loss was that happened, and pretty enough as they got into it, all it took was a couple of sessions and they're back into the game.
Yeah.
To maintain muscle mass, if you're worried about that, it's the bare minimum. As long as you got it and you're somewhat doing something towards it, or somewhat to maintain it, you generally should be all right. Obviously, I haven't got the numbers with me at the moment, but it is quite bare minimal. So for people who are listening to this in lockdown, who might not have a squat rack and only have 10 kilogram dumbbells like myself, by the time we get ourselves back into things and stuff like that, you're going to be getting yourself pretty much. You can get yourself back into the swing of things as long as you keep yourself active. But actually, I'm going to go into more of the current events side of things now. So obviously, as people all know, we're all a little bit locked down at the moment. We're all stuck in houses and stuff like that. And myself included, this has been a very benefit time to, let's say, focus on recovery.
Yeah.
Like I say, I work a long working lifestyle. Obviously, from start of that, I'm trying to obviously get things like my physical activity in. So that's whether my weight training, my football and stuff like that. There's other things going on in the lifestyle and the mo. And it's taken a toll. Now, obviously, for me, this has been a great opportunity for me to kind of sit back, relax, do things I've not been able to do. So things like socializing with my mates, again, play FIFA, show Mike how to play COD at times. Just a few things just to nail off the bat. Before Mike goes on and goes on another tangent over here, the idea at the moment is, whether the way you see it, this is a great opportunity to work on things where you might not be able to. So if you are one of the type of people now who at the moment are sitting back at the moment and kind of relaxing a little bit before you get yourself back into it, that's perfectly fine. Just obviously, what I will say is, don't make it to the habit of getting into this as well. Build upon this. Make sure by the time you come out of this lockdown period, you are becoming a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stop right there.
No, it's like, this is the ideal time. Because obviously, if you're that concentrated on the gym and you're like, oh, I'm too focused on the gym to be able to worry about recovery and meal planning, you haven't got the gym. You've got plenty of time. Because if a lot of people are furloughed, what are you going to be doing? You're going to be already pushing yourself into a habit. So, like, I think this could be potentially one of the worst things about lockdown, is this might carry habits over when we've got life back. And the fact that people are too relaxed. People are like, oh, well, I've not survived with the gym for this long. I might as well not go back. I've got Netflix. I've started a few good series. I might as well stay with them. You just need to wait for that green light and just be like, right, okay, but this is the time to prepare everything else in preparation for the gym.
Yeah. I find that I've realized now, most people now, it's not the case of having the motivation or the drive. I just find the case that most people just make excuses. So I can't do this, I can't do that. This has been a great time. If you're someone who wants to get fitter, this is a great time. I mean, the amount of times I've gone on a run myself, and I've seen runners, I've seen people on bikes and stuff like that. I mean, the weather's stunning. Obviously, I'm not saying like go and do something 3 or 4 times a day. We are supposed to stay in this lockdown, just to make clear, so people don't bite my head.
I was going to say, just to clarify, this podcast is being recorded before Boris's announcement, which is tomorrow. So obviously, this will come out on Monday when we know what he said. So
yes. So if he's lifted everything, completely ignore the last 5 minutes I've just said, and do the fuck you want to do. But if not, and we're still in some kind of lockdown, respect the rules, respect other people, but still work on your goals. Still work on things. If for example, if meal tracking and food prep is one of your goals or something you want to improve on, I mean, what are you doing on a Sunday to not do that anymore?
Mm.
Like, obviously, I don't know your lifestyle. I don't know Mike's lifestyle. I don't know other people's lifestyle. But we've all got the same 24 hours. And it's just having that level of priority that's going to either somewhat positive your life or somewhat negative your life, or worst in your life, or whatever you want to call it in grammar sense. But yeah, I think generally, Mike, I think we've covered everything that we've wanted to cover about. I mean, we could be particularly all here talking about recovery and stuff like that, but as always, we try to, on this podcast, try to keep things focused. We never go off topic at all. We never go off things and mention the fact that something that might not make no sense for 5 minutes, and then we go back into what we're trying to talk about. But we always try to help out.
It's most of the time, it's going to try and be helpful for you. So obviously, we're going to try and cue it in. Like if the topic has come into discussion, it will be something related. Yeah. Apart from when Miles says that I'm crap at COD because I keep having to revive him. That's a different story.
Oh, man. And on that note, guys, as always, people, if you've enjoyed the podcast, or if you're on YouTube watching this video, make sure you give a like, share it with your family and stuff. It'll be massively appreciated. Obviously, me and Mike are working very hard than we've ever had in our PT careers to make sure that we're giving as much value as we possibly can. As you can see, obviously, Mike's got his now special mic. We are trying to improve. Exactly. We are trying to improve as much as we possibly can. So if you guys can get the word out, or just show a bit of appreciation, or just, for example, if you guys have got a question or anything like that, give us a shout, message us on our personal social medias and stuff like that. It's in the bio of whatever we're filming or recording this on. But yeah, like we mentioned, the main thing, guys, is to stay safe, keep yourself happy, and keep moving forward. That is the main thing, and obviously the main drive of this podcast. So I'm going to shut the hell up. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you guys in the next podcast. Peace.
Peace.